Hi everyone. Today we are going to talk about two topics of systematics, which are zoological nomenclature and international code. Um, so the first thing we need to do is rote learn or cram the definition. We cannot do anything about it, so just cram it up. Zoological nomenclature is the system of scientific names applied to taxonomic units of animal known to occur in nature, either living or extinct. Now there are three requirements that this nomenclature has to fulfill. One is that the name has to be unique. So it should be like the index number of a file. जैसे आपका फाइल का अगर कोई नाम है और वो यूनिक होना चाहिए ताकि अगर हम उसको लेके सर्च करें ऑनलाइन, if we search using that name, then we should get all relevant material for that. This is particularly useful when you want to look at literature regarding that species or taxa. Right? So you should be able to access all the information using that name, and that should be sufficient. Now, how we achieve this is by using this binomial nomenclature, which was proposed by Linnaeus, Carl von Linnaeus, and we'll talk about it more later, in 1758, so nearly 250 years or more. And in Systema Natura, the 10th edition, he proposed this code. What happens in this is that in this binomial nomenclature is that binomial. So you have first the genus name and the second is the species name. Now, this combination of genus and species name has to be unique. So under the same genus, there cannot be two species that there cannot be multiple taxa that have the same species name to keep the name unique. Next is universality. So the name that is given should be universally accepted. So now if we use different names, for example, if we use something that is in Bengali or in Marathi or in Kashmiri or different languages, then the people of different regions might not be aware of the name, of the local name. So, well, not that we came up with the system or that they cared about our regional identity. Anyway, the system that is universally accepted is that we use a single language, Latin, which is dead, so it's not changing anymore. That more or less people who came up with this code accepted at that time that, okay, we name species using this language. The pro part is that any word in any language, so irrespective of what language I speak, whether I speak Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, anything, I can Latinize the name by adding different suffixes. For example, I can add US, A, ensis, and that name can be changed into a Latin name. For example, this Japonica, Indicus, Chinensis. So we can have something like Suratensis, like if it's from Surat, right? Another point that helps to give validity to this Latin name is that most of the earlier scientific literature is in Greek or Latin, right? Next. We also want the name to be stable, so it should not change. Definitely not every year and not every 10 years or 20 years, so that people working on something right now will have to look up different names. It has to be stable over time. Of course, there are revisions done when at regular periods by taxonomists, but that is usually because of errors or because at some point you might realize that, okay, you named a species differently, but that is a different morph of the same species or so on. So it's not as if patthar ki lakeer hai. Names can be changed, but you want stability in the zoological nomenclature. And the taxonomists, when they're naming a species, they have to follow rules. They have to define different types of specimens. It's a lot of work to give a species a name. It's a lot of work. Right. And this International Code of Zoological Nomenclatures, this safeguards against frequent name changing. So you cannot change the name just because next year there is a new political party and you want to appease them. Yeah. And actually, yeah, never mind. Right. So this International Code of Zoological Nomenclature was first adopted in the 15th International Congress of Zoology that was published around 1961. फिर इसको modify किया गया. This code was modified in 1964 by the 16th Congress, and that is the most recent version that's used. Now, the object of having this code is to promote stability, universality in the scientific name of animals, and to ensure that each name is unique and distinct, right? So let me learn the key words that are used here and that you should also learn: stability, universality in the scientific name, stability, universality, and each name should be unique and distinct. Now, this was given by a person, Carolus Linnaeus, who was the father of a set of rules. He published it in different books, but the 10th edition of Systema Natura, which was published in 1758, is the one that we use currently, is the one from which the code was adopted, right? Next. So this International Code of Zoological Nomenclature has different bodies. One is the Congress, International Congress of Zoology. It's like a legislative body like we have. So basically it votes the constitution and proposals put before it by the commission. What is the commission? It is the International Commission on Zoological Nomenclature. This is a judicial body which is elected by the Congress. It is a protector of the code and deals with the interpretation, disputes, implementation of the code, and also if there are any amendments to the code. Now, the International Code of Zoological Nomenclature is a system of rules and recommendations authorized by the International Congress of Zoology. And like I said, the object is stability and universality of the name, and that each name is unique and distinct. So ये 4 words याद करना है: stable, universal, unique, and distinct. This does not necessarily mean that the taxonomist cannot name something whatever they want. They can. They just have to add 3-4 letters at the end of each word, right? Before the present code, how were taxa being named before that? So there were other codes in different parts of the world. So like in Europe, there was the Strickland code or W.H. Dahl code in the US, Deauville code in France. So different code. Like just yaad rakh lena, Strickland, the W.H. Dahl, and Deauville. लिखने के लिए लिखना पड़ा तो. All right. Then, now, what are the salient features of this International Code of Zoological Nomenclature? So this 1964 code consists of a preamble, which is like our constitution in a way, 86 articles, 5 appendices, a glossary, a detailed index, and this is in parallel both in French and in English. And the starting date of the code is 1758, which was when Carl Linnaeus published his code. Now, what are the different features? Name must be either in Latin or Latinized. Names of taxa higher than species should be uninominal. So basically that means you cannot have multiple words to describe one genus. It should be one word. So for example, Homo, or yeah, I mean, it should be one word. It cannot be Homo, Mono, Somo. No, it has to be one word. When you go to the species level, then it is binomen, because there is one word that represents the genus and the other that represents the species. And when you go to the subspecies level, then it can be trinomen. So the genus, the species, and then the subspecies. The name of a subgenus can be placed in parentheses between genus and species. So Zorides, Nigrus, and then the Gonophonus is the subgenus. Family name should end in DAE. So like Tipulidae, right? Genus name should be a noun in nominative singular or treated as such. So I don't understand what that means. I'm just going to cram it. If anybody knows it, please comment, or if I understand it, I'll comment later. So the genus name should be a noun in nominative singular or treated as such. So I guess what it means is that you cannot have ranas. Probably, I don't know what the exact is. So the 8th code rule is that species name should be an adjective or noun in nominative singular, agreeing in gender with the generic name, or a noun standing in opposition to the generic name. These are just complicated rules of the Latin language. That is how I understand, and so I just cram this rule. Isko bas rakh letna hai. Then zoological nomenclature is independent of other systems. So for example, it will not depend on the element naming system or anything. This is an independent system. All names that are given to the species should be mentioned in synonymy. So for example, the same species in different regions can be called by different names using this International Code of Zoological Nomenclature, simply because, let's say, people did not know of the existence of this other name or so on. So if that is the case, then these different names should be listed. For example, when you see in 13, synonyms are different names assigned to the same taxon. They should be mentioned along with the valid taxon. So for example, Arias vitelli, if it is also called Arias fabia, that should be given in the bracket. Author's name is not part of the name, its use is optional and is suffixed. So if Linnaeus named this Cancer pagarius, it's not important that we always write Linnaeus. Then law of priority means that the valid name is the oldest one that is published and available, unless of course it is wrong for some reason. So homonyms are identical names in spelling for different species of the same genus and for different genera of a family. So for example, platypus is also used for, I think, a bark beetle, and then we have the platypus mammals. And the norm is that the senior one, the one that was named earlier, has to be kept, and the junior one has to be rejected or phased out and replaced. So this can arise, for example, when people are not aware of the existing species name, or names are transferred from one genus to the other. Now, when we name a taxa or we have different specimens that we use. The single specimen on which the description for that taxa is based, for that species is based, is called holotype, and it has a red colored label. Allotype is the opposite sex of the specimen of holotype. So if your holotype was a female, allotype would be a male. This also carries a red label. Then paratype are all the other specimens of that species that are left after you have designated one specimen as the holotype, one specimen as the allotype. They carry yellow labels. Then syntypes are specimens. For example, if the author, when describing, does not assign any specimen as a holotype, then all the specimens that the author studied are called as syntypes. Next is lectotype. In the absence of a holotype, when there is no holotype, one specimen from the syntype can be designated as the lectotype, and the rest all are called paralectotypes. Neotype are, if all your type specimens are destroyed, then you can describe a specimen as a neotype if the description fits very well with the earlier described species. Right, so that is all for today. Thank you very much. Right, thank you.